Here are the Beach Boys.
Round, round, year round, I get around, yeah.
Welcome to Watch Mojo. And today we'll be discussing the dark side of the Beach Boys.
Then he said I had to give him the guitar and all the money I had in my pocket.
They exist as one of the oldest touring groups in rock and roll, alongside the Zombies and the Rolling Stones, and are clearly one of America's most iconic bands. But there's a dark side to everything in life if you look hard enough. Even the otherwise bright and cheery-sounding music of the Beach Boys. How much joy was actually behind the scenes of the venerable group's origins, commercial success, and personal struggles? Family issues. The Beach Boys formed in 1961 and found success only a couple of years after getting together in the garage. Actually, make that the family garage, since the Beach Boys' complicated legacy heavily involves the Wilson family. Murray Wilson was the family patriarch, an aspiring songwriter who managed the Beach Boys during the early part of their career. Brian Wilson was the group's leader and primary songwriter, aided by brothers Carl and Dennis Wilson, cousin Mike Love, and family friend Al Jardine. Another young friend, David Marks, performed in the Beach Boys' early hit albums including Surfin' USA and Little Deuce Coupe. The group's classic lineup, however, primarily focuses upon these aforementioned five members.
Surfing USA.
The elder Wilson was, by most accounts, a cruel man who seemed to take perverse delight in abusing his sons both mentally and physically.
Did you live in fear of your father?
Yeah.
Stories also circulated that Murray Wilson would occasionally remove his glass eye in order to torment his boys. Some claim Brian's partial deafness resulted from a childhood beating by his father, although recollections differ as to the exact cause of his hearing loss.
The one good thing of my dad, I remember, he did write some good songs. He wrote some very pretty songs.
However, many think Brian Wilson preferred mixing his albums in mono rather than stereo due to this handicap. Father and sons would clash over publishing rights, especially after Murray, who had been ousted as manager, sold them off in the late 1960s.
When you think about your dad now, do you think what would you want to say to him?
I said, Dad, what do you think of our albums, or something like that?
Genius has a cost. There's simply no way to tell the Beach Boys story without discussing the musical genius of Brian Wilson.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we're cool.
The band's surf rock sound was popular, sure, but the artistic standing of pop music enjoyed a significant jump once Brian discovered the production technique and style of Phil Spector. Specifically, it was Spector's work on the landmark Be My Baby by the Ronettes that served as a light bulb moment for Brian's own studio experimentation. Brian had already hired outside musical help for some of the Beach Boys' latter-day surf records, but it was now time to fully utilize members of the famous Wrecking Crew for what would become his magnum opus.
In truth, at that point, the Beach Boys were Brian Wilson. He created it all.
It isn't hyperbole to describe Pet Sounds as one of the most influential rock records ever produced, because, honestly, it is.
Wouldn't it be nice if we were older, then we wouldn't have to wait so long?
There was already a creative arms race of sorts, with groups like the Beach Boys attempting to catch up and outdo British invasion acts like the Beatles.
I felt competitive with the Beatles. It's a funny thing. It's funny.
That said, the undeniable greatness that is Pet Sounds didn't come without a cost. The stresses of writing, recording, and touring took its toll on Brian, and the songwriter suffered a nervous breakdown in 1967, only a year after the release of Pet Sounds. Wilson would eventually turn towards substances in the aftermath of this breakdown, in an effort to combat the severe depression and agoraphobia that tortured this now reclusive genius. Dennis's downward spiral. Brian Wilson wasn't the only Beach Boy to go to war with substance use disorder.
Hi, my name is Dennis Wilson. I make rock and roll records.
Drummer Dennis Wilson was another talent within the Beach Boys' creative nucleus, releasing an excellent solo record in 1977 titled Pacific Ocean Blue. Dennis was also the only member of the Beach Boys who actively enjoyed surfing, but the musician would also be continually tempted by alcohol, heroin, and sex throughout his life, and often overindulged in all three. While Brian Wilson's deep dive into his own mind resulted in poor hygiene, paranoia, and weight gain, Dennis's path to excess caused him to cross paths with one of history's most infamous figures, Charles Manson.
And he picked up a guitar and he started playing me these songs. He said, yeah, his friend of mine, Charlie, wrote these songs.
The Beach Boys drummer had picked up a couple of hitchhiking female associates of Manson and eventually brought them both to his home on Sunset Boulevard.
That was Charlie's thrust. He really wanted to be in the music business.
Soon, a sort of living arrangement was ushered in, with some members of Manson's family cohabitating the premises, and with the cult leader collaborating with Wilson on songwriting. This partnership resulted in a song actually being recorded by the Beach Boys, albeit with a retitling and a complete omission of Manson as co-songwriter. The tune, originally titled Cease to Exist and now known as Never Learn Not to Love, wound up as a B-side, but serves as physical proof of the chaotic scene that was the Manson family's brief crossover with Beach Boys culture.
And he said, you mess with anything with me, but he said, you don't mess with my words.
Dennis's later days. Things would only get worse for both Dennis and Brian Wilson as the 70s dragged on into the 80s.
As Dennis deteriorated personally, the Bamboo Sessions deteriorated.
The lasting effects of Dennis Wilson's drug use debilitated both his singing and drumming abilities, and he was let go from the group. This unpredictable behavior had escalated into reported bouts of violence while the Beach Boy was in romantic relationships with both actress Karen Lamb and Fleetwood Mac's Christine McVie.
After they split, she described him as half little boy and half insane.
Dennis's final partner before his 1983 death was a woman named Shawn Marie Harris, the latter of whom claimed to be the daughter of Dennis's cousin, Mike Love. Love denies this claim, but it was Harris who successfully intervened on Dennis's behalf to have his body buried at sea without cremation after the drummer drowned on December 28, 1983.
When I listen to his music, it's weird. It's just this real deep, intense, I almost want to say trying to find a lost love or something. It's a real intense feeling and you can't figure it out, but it's there.
Mike Love is a controversial figure. Speaking of Mike Love, his role in the Beach Boys story is largely relegated to villain, although the reality is much more complicated.
Mike Love, history's greatest monster. Maybe that's overselling it, but there's no denying that he has one of the worst reputations in music.
What is true is the current Beach Boys singer's history of litigiousness concerning royalties, to which Love feels he's entitled. The lawsuits basically outline how many of the songs in question, despite relying heavily on Brian Wilson's creative leadership, were bolstered by contributions from Mike Love.
I came up with round, round, get around, I get around, and I came up with I'm picking up good vibration, she's giving me excitations.
Mike Love was also vilified for a now infamous speech when the Beach Boys were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1988. It was a combative, combustible, and frankly embarrassing scene where Love seemed to point fingers and issue challenges to all of classic rock's all-time greats, from the Stones to the Beatles.
Now, a lot of people are going to go out of this room tonight thinking that Mike Love is crazy. Well, they've been saying that for years.
Love has also been criticized for the continued monetization and commercialization of the Beach Boys as a brand, lending their name to everything from a failed animated cartoon to a cringeworthy rap experiment during an episode of Baywatch.
We'll be California dreaming, Baywatching every day, just off the pier, Malibu surfing, USA.
Brian's controversial therapist. One massive hit from the Mike Love era was Kokomo, a soundtrack cut from the 1988 film Cocktail.
Jamaica, ooh, I wanna take
The music video for this song notably featured John Stamos on conga drums, but no Brian Wilson. Wilson, at the time, seemed to be controlled by a psychologist named Eugene Landy.
Okay, I screened his phone calls for a year and a half.
It was Landy's controversial approach to rehab and therapy that assisted Brian in emerging from his self-imposed cocoon of exile. However, it did so at the expense of Landy indoctrinating himself into every aspect of his patient's life. This included garnering compositional credits on Beach Boys songs, as well as performing managerial responsibilities and charging a substantial financial fee.
And you violated it.
But I didn't do it.
But you were preparing to take a piece of a business transaction with your patient.
Interview footage from this time showcases exactly how much control Landy possessed over much of Brian Wilson's personal and professional life.
When he does see other people, Landy or one of his hand-picked aides is almost always watching.
It sadly also echoes the Beach Boys' current status under a conservatorship. Landy was eventually excised from Wilson's life by the latter's family, who filed a restraining order against the psychologist.
The sweet and loving Brian they knew has been isolated, virtually held a prisoner by Landy, and poisoned against them.
Landy would eventually lose his license to practice in California, although Wilson remained steadfast in his appreciation for the doctor's assistance during his darkest years.
They have said that they think you're in a kind of prison.
Well, life is a prison in itself.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Brian continues to face struggles. Yet the hallucinations and voices that have continually haunted Brian Wilson as a result of neurocognitive disorder issues remain a problem.
I didn't sleep last night. My head feels wacky.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
He's been widowed by his second wife, Melinda, herself a controversial figure, due to the alleged creative control she exerted over the 2014 film Love and Mercy, and is due, as of May 2024, to be placed under a legal conservatorship.
An LA judge found that Wilson is unable to care for himself because of a major neurocognitive disorder.
This occurred just as the group he co-founded, the Beach Boys, announced yet another summer tour with Mike Love at the helm. This duality of darkness and light doesn't go unnoticed by the group's fans, those who have followed the Beach Boys since the era of fun, fun, fun. Their music has brought joy and light to the lives of countless followers. Yet, it's the inherent darkness within their story that perhaps makes the Beach Boys' tumultuous history such a fascinating subject. What fact surprised you the most about the Beach Boys' history? Let us know in the comments.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.